Number 10. Gal Gadot. Gal has already made a place for herself amongst the world of powerful celebs thanks to her role as the iconic superhero Wonder Woman in the DC Extended Universe. A few years back, she was offered the opportunity to portray another iconic character loved by many, this time as the lovable plastic princess, Barbie. Around the same time as this film was getting off the ground, she was set to film her role in Wonder Woman 1984 and had also already signed contracts to appear in multiple DC and Netflix projects over the last couple of years. Despite initially being offered the lead, she was another celeb that wasn't even asked to make a small appearance in the already massive ensemble cast. She will more than likely not be checking this movie out, as not only is she too busy, but honestly, why would she want to see so many people having fun that she didn't get invited to? That's just like inviting the guy that you don't like to a party and letting them sit in a corner all night observing. Hey, it's uncomfortable. Don't invite that guy. Number 9. Cillian Murphy. Cillian is the man set to star as the titular scientist in Christopher Nolan's upcoming masterpiece, Oppenheimer. The film features an all-star cast with the likes of Matt Damon, Florence Pugh, and Robert Downey Jr. As the internet has certainly hammered into your brain by now, Oppenheimer is set to release on the same day as Barbie. These two movies are somehow the most anticipated releases of the summer. I physically cannot purchase a ticket to either of these movies for at least a week because good god they are sold out. A good thing for the films, but not for the cast. Cillian has claimed that his film may be making money, but that it's not for the intended reason. The goal of the film is to deliver a cinematic experience that you won't forget, and instead people are buying tickets as a meme, and I can only imagine how disruptive those crowds are going to be. He has claimed that he will never watch the Barbie movie as it ruined the premiere of his film, and it won't have the intended impact that it was supposed to. Get it? Impact? Like a bomb? Number 8. Zac Efron. Zachary David Alexander Efron is no stranger to the world of rumor casting. For the last 4 years, he's been on the top of Marvel's list of actors who may play Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four. But apparently he was also at the top of someone else's higher list, and that was the list of toy giant Mattel. That list was of the men that they wanted to play the leading Ken in their new Barbie live-action movie. Zac was their number 1 pick to portray the iconic male counterpart to Barbie, but they asked him to participate in the film and he denied their request. Apparently at the time of production, he was already working on his thriller action movie called Gold, which ended up being a dud at the box office. Due to his busy schedule, as well as a commitment to appear as the wrestler Kevin Von Erich in a new biopic called The Iron Claw, Zac was unable to commit to the flick and was eventually replaced with Ryan Gosling, who, let's face it, he's gonna be the best Ken ever portrayed on screen. Now, I don't know for sure if anybody on this list will or will not see the movie, but something tells me that Zac isn't waiting in line to watch someone in what was supposed to be his role. Number 7. Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel, whose real name I just found out is Mark Sinclair, so it makes sense why he changed that, has been starring as the leading man of the Fast and Furious franchise since the first film was released in 2001. As many may expect, being the face of a franchise like that means Vin is almost always filming. The Fast and Furious movies have been known to take forever to finish thanks to the complicated stunts, the CGI, and just the overall insanity of the project. Seriously, they went to space in the last movie. Fast 10 premiered this past May to massive success, and somehow after 10 movies, fans are still eating up these action-packed fuel rides, despite them getting cheesier and cheesier over the years. Thanks to its initial success, the planned 10th Fast and Furious movie has begun production. Lord knows who they wrapped into that one. They've got Jason Momoa and John Cena mixed into this now. The next movie should reveal that Nicolas Cage has been their dad the whole time. Since Vin will be working hard on his next Fast movie, he will have no time to see the Barbie movie and refuses to make any time to see it. Number 6. Martin Short. Martin Short is a man who needs no introduction because he usually does it himself. Martin is one of the original comedy greats, being a key member in making the Canadian sketch comedy series Second City Television alongside fellow Canadian legends like Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, and the late great John Candy. Martin has lent his magnificent voice to many projects over the years, both on screen and in a recording booth. And in case you didn't know, Mattel has actually been pumping out Barbie movies since computers were capable of rendering something that resembled a person. The early animated movies of Barbie are just hard to watch, but there is one particular movie that featured Martin as the main antagonist. The Princess and the Pauper is a 2004 horror film, kids movie, in which Martin played the character Preminger. I'm not entirely sure why he said yes to this project, but as you'll come to learn, the Barbie title brings a lot of cheddar with it, so thanks to this movie being made on a shoestring budget, he got a lot of money. When it was announced that there would be a live-action version of Barbie, Martin was initially excited, hoping that he may get a chance to star in the film and sing his little heart out. Instead, the movie started production without him, and he didn't know that he wasn't going to be involved until after the trailer came out. Whether it be pride or a form of revenge, Martin will not be attending the Barbie premiere. Instead, he'll be next door getting his eardrums caved in at Oppenheimer. Number 5. Amy Schumer. And the film Trainwreck, which is the most accurate film title of all time, has been a busy bee for a while now. Amy's career has been rocky on screen, however behind the scenes she's been very active as a writer, a producer, and a stand-up comedian, with her latest special Emergency Contact now streaming on Netflix. Recently, Amy was asked to participate in a small project alongside Margot and Ryan called Barbie. Amy was one of the many talents offered a spot in the live-action film adaptation of one of the most popular dolls in human history, but she denied that request to appear as one of the many variants. Her reasoning isn't anything scandalous, it's just simply because Amy was on tour during the time of filming and couldn't actually physically be on set. But she actually shared a story about herself being asked to audition for the role 6 years ago, but claimed that due to the film taking so long to produce on top of just her busy schedule that it would have been impossible for her to do. The idea of Amy in the film isn't horrible, she could have been like a fun little addition to the ensemble cast, but because of the drama that surrounded the original movie and probably what surrounded it now, because hey, she didn't get asked to return, she's not gonna be going to the theater to watch something that they just forgot about her in. Like, why not bring Amy in? You asked her a few years ago. Number 4. Tim Curry. I see you shiver with anticipation. Tim Curry, better known as the most wonderful and treasured man to ever grace our screens, has a little bit of a bias towards the live-action Barbie movie, and it's for a good reason. In 2001, Tim participated in a straight-to-video DVD called Barbie and the Nutcracker, playing the main antagonist of the piece, the Mouse King. For some reason, the producers over at Mattel just love spending all of their money on getting a good villain. How about throwing some more money into the graphics, guys? These people are horrifying to look at. The Nutcracker was actually the company's very first attempt at animation and motion capture, so we have to forgive them a little bit. Maybe if they had as much money as Disney, things would have been different. Because Tim technically broke ground by starring in this flick, he holds a grudge towards the creators of the live action film, having a personal belief that they canceled the franchise that had been doing fine, considering that there were like 40 Barbie movies by now. Literally, I counted, there are exactly 42 Barbie movies that have been released since 2001. I don't know how I feel about that. Tim is just one of the many animated stars that won't be stopping by the theater to watch this mess anytime soon. Number 3. Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway doesn't just share the same name as William Shakespeare's wife, yes, that is a real fact. She's also been up for a few roles over the years, with one particular one leaving a sour note in her career. Anne was actually on the short list of people who were going to be casted as the live-action Barbie lead. She had made it through several rounds of auditions and performed multiple read-throughs with cast members, but the role was ultimately offered to Margot Robbie. There was no real reasoning for this other than the studio believing that Margot was just better suited for the role. Yep, nothing wrong, just the studio saying, hey, we picked someone better, my darling. When asked about the ordeal in interviews, she so far claimed that the split was simply due to an inability to agree on things. Creative differences once again cost someone their job. However, Anne was up for the role a long time ago. Perhaps there is still hope that she'll make an appearance in the movie alongside many other A-list actors, surely making their cameo mark in the Barbie world. But she'll probably not go out and see it because hey, it costs too much to go to the movies these days. Number 2. Seth Rogen. As mentioned earlier in this list, the Barbie movie we are about to receive was not the very first planned live-action movie. During a brief period in 2018, the Barbie movie was being written by a production company that really had nothing to do with kids' toys. Seth Rogen's production house, Point Grey, were one of the many companies who had a toe dipped into the Barbie pond. Their part in the project was to pitch and punch up the existing script to add a little bit more adult humor for the parents in the crowd. Ultimately, the end product was nothing like what Mattel was expecting, and honestly, I'm not sure what they wanted. They asked the guy who blew up the leader of North Korea to punch up a movie about a doll. At the end of the day, Seth's version of the film was shelved along with any other versions of the project as Warner Brothers purchased the rights. When the first trailer got released for the Barbie movie, Seth actually had no cares to give, reason being, he already moved on to his next passion project, an animated reboot of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which so far just looks awesome. Since Seth has spent the last year developing his new movie, he has little to no time to actually go out and do things and watch anything in theaters, so something tells me that if he could go though, he'd be more of an Oppenheimer kind of a guy. And at number 1, Margot Robbie. Taking the number 1 spot on our list is Margot Robbie herself. Now, many actors have famously refused to see their own movies, and it's usually as simple as being uncomfortable with seeing themselves on such a massive screen. With Margot being the lead Barbie of this movie, we are surely going to be blessed with loads and loads of screen screen time dedicated to Margot and her feet, which are for some reason causing the internet to lose their mind. Think the whole heel thing is impressive? I watched this woman suffocate a man, walk across his chest, steal his keys, and unlock herself, all with her feet. For that, and I'm sure a million other reasons, she will not be attending the premiere this time around. One of those reasons is probably not wanting people to stare at her feet instead of watching the movie. Hey y'all, her eyes are up here! Number 10. Issa Rae. Issa is just one of the many people who plays the iconic doll in this film. She's a welcome addition to the cast, and she is no stranger to the world of comedy, having starred and written in a very popular sketch series called A Black Lady Sketch Show. When she was asked to participate in the movie, she was beyond excited. As the process went on, she was reading with other potential cast members, during which time she finally realized that she would not be the only Barbie in the movie. Initially, she was under the impression that she was going to be the leading lady of Greta's flick, but discovered that she was just going to be one of several other actors set to portray variants of the character. As production began, her enthusiasm dropped hard. Imagine thinking that you're playing a lead character only for someone to come on set one day and say, "Alright guys, make room for the lead." No, I'm not talking about you. As a result, her time on set was stressful and slightly upsetting. But she didn't want to back out entirely and ventured on to make her mark in the Barbie world. Number 9. Ryan Gosling. This Canadian treasure has been acting since his mid-teens in a little show called Goosebumps. I'm not sure why so many studios made horror-themed kids shows, but they did, and we watched them and loved them all. His career has been going strong since starring in The Notebook, but he's been thrust back into the mainstream thanks to his turn as the leading Ken in Barbie. While he enjoyed his overall time on set, cause hey, he was the lead, he was being fed grapes by a PA getting paid nothing. One thing that was difficult according to Ryan though was learning how to skate for this movie. There are several scenes with Ryan having to rollerblade, a skill that he did not possess in real life. That's right, some Canadians can't skate, and I'm one of them. The director Greta Gerwig wanted to have as few stunt people on set as possible, so she tasked Ryan with taking a crash course in skating. Despite working hard for almost a month, he wasn't able to get to that smooth Olympic skate style that he was aiming for, and according to several reviews, Ryan's skating is pretty dreadful in the movie. This was a lot of pressure for Ryan on set, having to try and try again during takes, falling over and over again. His time on set was spent in fear of disappointing Greta and the rest of the crew, and unfortunately it looks like he was right to be nervous. Number 8. John Cena. In 2002, John Cena first rapped his way to the ring, becoming one of the most popular superstars in the WWE. John was a wrestler for many years, and I personally grew up watching this dude throw people through tables and wave his hand in front of his face. John had a massive fan base that were stoked to see that he was slowly making a transition from just wrestling to acting in big budget projects. While he had some straight-to-video projects as well as a few small roles in movies here or there, it wasn't until 2018 that he would cement himself as a Hollywood heavyweight. After starring in the comedy Blockers, as well as the surprisingly entertaining Transformers prequel Bumblebee, it was clear that John was going to be around for a long time. Recently, he's been trying to make a move to the more action-packed side of comedy, starring as the titular Peacemaker in an HBO series based on his performance in the 2020 DC movie called The Suicide Squad. When it was announced that John would be appearing in the Barbie movie, fans were pretty curious. Why was he taking time away from his action-packed movies and to star in this lighthearted comedy about a doll come to life? Well, it turns out that he just needed a break from all the physically demanding stunts that he was doing on other projects. In fact, John hated working on the set of Barbie because he had simultaneously been filming a role alongside action movie legend Jackie Chan, and according to John, the demanding stunts combined with a need to be on the same level as Jackie caused his body to ache constantly. In between takes on set, John had to sit in a little chair while sipping a freshly blended protein smoothie. Ugh, that sounds gnarly. Number 7. Helen Mirren. Helen has been starring in silver screen darlings since the mid-1970s and has continued to deliver stellar performances to this day. She plays the role of the narrator in the Barbie movie and does an incredible job doing so. She's able to engage the audience despite not actually physically being on screen, which was her biggest problem with the movie. In an original draft of the script, the end of the movie would have seen Helen physically on screen reading a Barbie book to her granddaughter, pegging the entire movie as simply a woman giving her grandkid a nice bedtime story. Honestly, I'm pretty glad that that was not the ending of this movie because it was just a story trope is just really old and played out, and this movie is so unique, it would have been a cop-out of an ending. Unfortunately, the news that the ending would be changed upset Helen as she was excited to be a physical part of the film. To help her feel better though about her role, Greta invited her to take a tour on the set and get a first-hand look at what she was narrating. The more times she visited the set, the more accepting she was of not being in the movie, but still being a vital part part of the story. Number 6. Simu Liu. A few years ago, Simu Liu was just a guy working on a Canadian sitcom that had a massive fan base. Thanks to one tweet, he was thrust into the role of Shang-Chi, Marvel's first solo superhero movie featuring an Asian lead. The movie received massive success at the box office and launched Simu into a new career. And it's well earned, because this guy is genuinely the sweetest dude in the world. I used to work at a movie theater and I watched this man get surrounded by fans, and all he did was smile, stand there, and ask them to make a line. He literally took a picture with every single person and said hi that was in that line. This dude is just awesome. I mean, he just wanted to see Rocket Man, so that was nice of him to stop by and say hello. It appears that joy and charm translates to his time on set as well. According to Simu, he was barely able to keep it together around his co-star Ryan Gosling. The pair spent a large amount of screen time together, but that surely doesn't begin to compare to the amount of behind-the-scenes footage that surely exists. Simu was initially excited to simply be a part of this awesome movie, but was even more excited when he made a new friend. According to Greta Gerwig, they broke character a lot and would make each other laugh to the point where they needed to take regular 10-minute breaks to let them get their composure together. This may be the first time these two work together, but hopefully it will not be the last. Number 5. Michael Cera. Michael Cera was a busy man between 2000 and the mid-2010s, starring in critically acclaimed comedies and dramatic flicks like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Superbad, and Juno. Following a brief break from acting, Michael has been making a return to the big screen, adding Barbie to his list of accomplishments, playing the much forgotten about Barbie doll companion, Alan, a doll that was produced by Mattel for only 1 year in 1964 before being pulled off of shelves because for some reason kids just didn't like him. When Michael accepted the role in Barbie, he was under the impression that he was going to be a Ken like the rest of the guys on set, but instead he was given a unique role as the misunderstood Barbie buddy. His time on set was a mixed bag of emotions. At first, he was super upset at having to play a character that was literally cancelled before canceling was even a thing. It wasn't until the middle of shooting that his feelings started to shift, after he realized that his character wasn't just going to be some throwaway joke, but an actual person with character development. He fell deep into the role and he became Alan. If you need any proof, just watch this movie and enjoy the dance sequences. You know the ones. Number 4. Kingsley Ben-Adir. Kingsley has only been in the mainstream acting world since 2020 when he portrayed real-life human rights activist Malcolm X in the film One Night in Miami. Since then, he's been a busy bee, and apart from being casted in the Barbie movie, he recently began portraying the character of Gravik, the Skrull, in the Marvel TV series Secret Invasions. Man, for anyone who doesn't watch Marvel, that's gonna sound like gibberish. Kingsley is playing one of the many Ken variants that will be appearing in this movie. Despite his time on set being minimal compared to that of his fellow Kens, it was anything but ice cream and dance sequences. The entire time he was on set, he only had one thing on his mind. When the heck will this thing be over so I can get back to making more Disney money? The character Gravik is currently still alive and very much kicking in the MCU. Even if his character does get, taken out, that never seems to stick for more than a year or two. He wanted nothing more than to return to the world of Marvel, where he not only plays a supervillain, but spoiler alert to anyone that hasn't watched the show yet, he has all of the superpowers. He became the very first Super Skrull, and Skrulls are people who can shapeshift. You know what? I'm not gonna go on. If you ever just go watch every Marvel project ever so you can understand this 2-minute entry on my list. Basically, the reason he didn't like being on set was because he just couldn't stop thinking about how cool he would look with a tree arm. Number 3. Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell is best known as someone who makes people laugh, and it's rarely because he's the bad guy. Yes, he's been a villain a few times in movies like Zoolander and the Lego Movie, but those characters were outlandish and they were never actually considered to be villainous. His turn as the evil CEO of Mattel has been well received, but fans agree that he's surprisingly good at playing a bad guy. Like, it's suspiciously good. A talent which Will is not proud of. Will is considered to be one of the nicer people to work with in Hollywood, and he tends to bring a solid sense of joy to the set. While he was playing the role of the CEO, he would have to apologize constantly on set for the fear that he may be just too good at faking his evil. His time on set was spent wishing that he could have just played a different character, but I've personally not seen the movie yet, but for all I know, Will Ferrell has the most redemptive arc of the movie. Heck, maybe he even roller skates or something. Maybe he becomes a Ken. We'll just have to wait and see. controversy. Number 2. The Mattel president. The COO of the toy giant Mattel, Richard Dixon. Okay, that sounds like a fake name. Richard has been in charge of the company's marketing, development, and strategy teams since the mid-2010s. When the initial offer came for a Barbie movie to be made, Richards wasn't exactly stoked about the idea. Barbie had been a staple in the world of toys and, for some reason, animated kids movies for a very long time. The idea of stripping that down to create some big-budget Hollywood movie didn't sound very appealing at all. When Greta Gerwig delivered the first draft of the script, his tune seemed to shift. Richard, along with a few other executives, made the decision to go forward on the project, but they would need to keep a close eye on the progression of things. This meant that a man from the company was always on set, monitoring every little move made by the cast and crew. Mattel were on edge the entire time this movie was being made, especially considering that Will Ferrell was playing a fictionalized version of their CEO. This is one of their biggest and most profitable properties to date. A live-action movie, especially one with such star power, will either bring a lot more of that sweet cash through the door, or make the company look like a laughingstock. And at number 1, Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie may be perfect to portray the iconic Barbie doll come to life, but she wasn't very confident throughout filming. Of course, Margot is a stellar actor, and I have personally enjoyed a lot of her work, but there is a lot of pressure on her shoulders as she's taking on a very difficult job. Whenever someone is casted in a pre-existing role, everybody's got an opinion about it. When she was casted as Harley Quinn in 2016, there was a massive debate on whether she could pull it off or not, and they ended up giving her 3 movies. So she pulled it off. This time around, Margot has expressed her nervousness about playing such an iconic character. Barbie is supposed to be a doll that inspires young women to explore their passions and be whatever they want to be, and the mission of the movie is to translate that to screen. So far, the reviews for Barbie are nothing but positive, as it currently sits at a whopping 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. Margot may have spent the majority of her time on set being nervous of her reception from past Barbie owners, but so far this is looking like it's going to be her best performance yet. And those are the celebrities that hated working on the Barbie movie. Number 10. Amy Schumer. The woman behind comedy projects like The Amy Schumer Show and the film Trainwreck, which is the most accurate film title ever made, Amy's career has been rocky on screen. However, behind the scenes, she has been very active as a writer, producer, and stand-up comedian, with her new special Emergency Contact now streaming on Netflix. Recently, Amy was asked to participate in a small project alongside Margot and Ryan Gosling. It's called Barbie, and I have already purchased my tickets. Amy was one of the many talents offered a spot to play the most popular doll in human history, but denied the request to appear as one of the many variants that we will surely be getting. Her reasoning is simply because Amy was on tour during the time of filming and couldn't physically be on set. But that was just this time around. It turns out that Amy was actually asked to audition for the role 6 years ago, but claims that the studio fought her at every corner when it came down to the plot. Amy wanted a more female-centric PG-13 type deal, getting a little raunchy at times, but they ultimately decided that it should be a more accessible movie for both adults and kids. In the end, they decided to put the project on ice, and Amy returned to the world of stand-up. Now, whether it's that fact or the fact that this Barbie will be entirely Amy-less, she has decided to steer clear just to be safe. Number 9. Cara Delevingne. Cara and Margot did work together on a film in 2016 that we'd all love to forget about, and thanks to James Gunn, that's pretty easy. The pair starred together in DC's live-action adaptation of the Suicide Squad series. Margot, of course, portrayed the clown queen of Gotham, Harley Quinn, and still does that to perfection. Now, while Cara spent the majority of the movie making a sky beam and a subway station as the Enchantress, this movie was awful. It was not the fault of the cast, however. They actually worked very well together and were probably the only good thing about the movie. Since the cast worked so well on screen, they decided to spend more time together off screen, even getting tattoos to commemorate the film that I'm sure they just all regret now. Cara has been asked if she would ever collaborate with Margot on future DC projects, but has maintained that the chances of that happening are probably unlikely. Not only did she despise the end result of the project, but she's unable to maintain her composure around Margot, and claims that she would break too often for it to be a smooth shoot. So hey, James Gunn, Jamie, buddy, can you cast Cara in a sequel and just give her like less CGI this time and maybe just put her in a room away from Margot? Can you do that, buddy? Number 8. Johnny Depp. Johnny had a stellar career before getting involved in a very messy and very public trial with his ex-wife Amber Heard. As many people are hopefully aware by now, Johnny portrayed the iconic Disney pirate Captain Jack Sparrow in the popular Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. As with anything that Disney does, the Pirates franchise is currently on the list of potential continuations or reboots. But the plan that Disney has does not sit well with Johnny. Early drafts of the story include Jack Sparrow handing the torch to a new pirate lead in the form of of a female captain played by Margot Robbie. Girl! The plan is to pass the torch and hand over the franchise to a new generation. Now, while I personally love this idea, Johnny is not very excited about having such an iconic character written out in favor of a new, younger, and prettier version. While there has not been any confirmation on whether or not this movie is going to be made, one thing that has been confirmed is that Johnny is refusing to participate in the project unless he gets a say in the script. Disney better not mess this up, because let's face it, without Johnny Depp as Captain Jack, the entire project is doomed to be dragged to the bottom of Disney's forgotten film ocean. Number 7. Taylor Swift. I know what you're thinking. Taylor Swift doesn't act. When would she have refused to work with Margot? Well, I'm sorry to remind you of this, but she was in Cats. God, I never want to think about that again. Margot personally asked Taylor Swift to make a cameo as one of the many variations of Barbie that we are expecting to see in Greta Gerwig's upcoming comedy. It turns out Taylor and Margot have a small history together as friends, with Margot attending several of Taylor's concerts over the years and eventually making her way backstage, where her and Taylor just became the bestest of besties. Taylor actually turned Margot down, claiming that she didn't want to steal the show away from her friend, which is fair enough, because let's face it, ever since I said the words Barbie and Taylor Swift in the same sentence, you can't get that visual out of your head. Plus, having someone with such an incredible voice would have allowed the movie to transition into a more full-fledged musical comedy, which may already take place in the movie, but if not, we'll just reboot the franchise in a few years and recast the main character. Marvel does it all the time. Number 6. Kaley Cuoco. Welcome to Fun Facts with Nate. Did you know the actor best known as the girl next door Penny from the hit sitcom The Big Bang Theory currently lends her voice to the animated version of the character Margot Robbie has been playing on screen for 7 years? Boy howdy! Let me tell ya, Kaley currently plays Harley Quinn in the HBO Max animated series of the same name, while Margot has been playing the character since stealing the show in DC's Suicide Squad from 2016. Arguably, the only good thing about that movie was her, and that's it, she was the best. It's no surprise that the internet immediately began fabricating a feud between these two. They played the same character, but there can be only one. The two had actually never met before, but the people in charge of the convention known as Comic-Con ultimately decided to separate these two during their respective panels, but Kaley actually couldn't make it due to a scheduling conflict. Probably a good move, as putting two actors who play the same role in a room together with rowdy fans, it's never gone very well. Number 5. George Clooney. The former Batman actor and current celebrity, George Clooney is said to have banned Margot from participating in any future projects. He even mentioned that he was aware that she was the most in-demand actor on Hollywood's A-list, but due to something completely out of her control, he blacklisted her from any and all projects. According to an article published by New Idea, George initially wanted Margot to work on an upcoming project with him, but his decision changed at the last minute to, never mind, I didn't mean that. Apparently his decision was made after George discovered that Margot was set to work with a director known as David O. Russell on the film Amsterdam. Russell and Clooney had clashed on set of the 1999 film Three Kings, apparently disagreeing on how a specific scene should be portrayed. He also said that Mark Wahlberg was on his do not collaborate list, as he did not have George's back on set. Margot and Mark are on the no-no list. Okay, well then let them make a movie together. I don't even care what it is. Here is my money. Give me now, please. Number 4. Jada Pinkett Smith. Jada Pinkett Smith is the wife to I Am Legend star Will Smith, most recently holds the title of disgruntled talk show host after her popular YouTube series Red Table Talk was removed from the internet earlier this year. Jada's feud with Margot spawns from a series of rumors that began circulating in 2015. Will Smith and Margot were set to star in a dramatic thriller called Focus. According to many sources, the pair, who played on-screen romantic interests, were seen off-set cuddling and canoodling, leading many to speculate a possible affair was taking place. In reality, Margot and Will had just become close during the project and considered each other to be close friends, even collaborating in the DC flop The Suicide Squad the next year. When Jada first heard wind of the rumors, she did not take the news very well, reportedly confronting Margot and Will on set following a shoot day. While there was never any confirmation that these two did in fact participate in an affair, Jada has made it very clear that she wants nothing to do with Margot personally or professionally. Oh well, Jada's a bad person and a bad actor, so next. Number 3. Jared Leto. Jared and Margot actually made out on screen in 2016, starring as the Joker and Harley Quinn. Now, while they may have been on screen together, Margot wanted to be as far away from Jared as possible. In case you didn't already know, Jared is a little bit of a weirdo, and he takes the term method acting to a whole new level. When he was cast to play the Joker, he decided the best way to prepare for his role was to just dive right into the psyche of the green-haired maniac. Considering the Joker is one of the most brutal and mentally unhinged unhinged characters in DC's history, it's no shock that Margot requested to rehearse with a stand-in throughout the entire project. Jared was cold and crazy when he spoke, and on top of that, he left his fellow castmates gifts that he claims were recepted well, but I'm sure that anyone who actually got one of those gifts just threw them out immediately because he was leaving them adult toys, animal skulls, and entrails. Like, dude. Following the film's poor reception, Jared actually claimed that Margot was to blame. Their chemistry was non-existent, and he said that having to rehearse alone made it worse. You would think talking to yourself alone in a room would make him feel crazier. He's since refused to work with Margot ever again. Joke's on him though, he could have been a Ken if he had played his cards right. Number 2. Katherine Heigl. Katherine has been seen as a bit of a bad girl of Hollywood since first talking trash about her fellow actors and collaborator. On top of trashing that project in which she was the main female lead, she also trashed the writing of the show Grey's Anatomy, claiming that her character had not been given enough quality material to use in a recent season. Katherine was originally asked to portray the character that Will Ferrell is currently credited to play in the new Barbie movie, but turned down the role with no hesitation. Since wrapping things up in the comedy world, she moved to more dramatic shows like Suits and Firefly Lane, trying to focus more on her ability to act rather than being funny. She claimed that Margot is an example of an actor who can exist in multiple genres at once, but that she herself was not. Katherine's choice to bail on this one is misguided, as so far Barbie is set to be one of the biggest box office successes of the summer and includes an all-star cast. A cast of people who probably wouldn't have accepted that role had they not been confident in the project. Katherine. Number 1. Christopher Nolan. Capping off our list is one of the greatest directors in modern history. Christopher has been behind some of the best films to be released in the last 20 years, always opting to use as many practical effects as possible, even driving a large cargo plane into an air hangar for a shot in the 2021 epic Tenet. Both the coolest and most confusing movie that guy ever made. Christopher is set to release a new movie called Oppenheimer, a biographical piece depicting the titular scientist and his role in the development of the atom. The internet has been swirling with memes as this film is said to simulate a small percentage of the actual force of an atom, created with IMAX speakers. What is funnier is the film is set to release on the same day as Barbie, and according to inside sources, that might not be a coincidence. Christopher asked Margot to audition for a role in his upcoming movie. Now, while it would have probably been small, instead opting to focus her efforts on Barbie. Nolan took this to heart and he vowed revenge. Both films went on as scheduled, but Nolan kept his eye on Margot. While he may never cast her in future projects, he would get the last laugh by interrupting her lighthearted comedy with screams and the sound of a crumbling theater. Honestly, I don't know if that last one is 100% true or not, but it's a little bit too suspicious to be a coincidence, right? Number 10. Super Mario Brothers. Why did somebody make this movie? The iconic Nintendo mascot Mario finally got his own big screen movie. No, not that one. We don't talk about that one. The 2023 version of Mario was voiced by Guardians of the Galaxy star Chris Pratt, accompanied by Charlie Day as Luigi, Anya Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach, Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, Keegan-Michael Key as Toad, and Jack Black as Bowser. Oh my god, the most all-star cast ever put into a recording booth. But much like all great casts, they were forced to answer to the almighty producers. The film was made by Illumination, the animation studio responsible for some of the most annoying little tic-tacs on the planet. Since it needs to be a kids movie that appealed to everybody, young and old, one key element of the movie was changed at the very last minute. Now, it's called The Mario Brothers, so you would think that Luigi would be in the movie, right? Well, he is, for like 15 minutes of screen time. Within the first 20 minutes of this movie, Mario is actually separated from his brother, who is captured and spends the majority of the runtime inside of a freaking cage. Instead, Toad and Princess Peach act as the side characters in this one, which is just like, come on, where is Luigi? They literally got Charlie Day, one of the funniest men in comedy, and jammed him next to the most mundane star to ever be animated on screen. This little guy was the best part of the movie though. While this film could have been worse, stop throwing the poster on the screen! It most certainly did not live up to the expectations of its fans. Number 9. Megan. Apart from starting a terrible viral dance that is basically just a stretch your arms kind of move, M3 Gin, or Megan if you're not a smart aleck like me, delivers little in the horror or thriller department. Megan is actually the only movie on this list to have a solid review percentage. It sits at a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, making it certified fresh, but it's not for a good reason. Megan was written to be a horror thriller movie, following a young girl who is gifted the titular AI that is supposed to be a helpful, friendly companion to the parents, but instead it takes its job as a guard to their daughter just a bit too seriously. A solid solid premise that sets up a scary movie, but it ends up just being a fun little action comedy. Megan herself is not scary at all. She just looks like a little kid wearing some kind of a fake Halloween mask. The movements of Megan are more cringy than scary, and many scenes in which characters are being chased or having their lives ended just turn out to be really funny instead of scary. Seeing a grown man running away from this thing? Why? Like, I can't. Like, who in the big blue marble of this planet said, you know what, this would be a great scary movie? This is clearly the greatest dark comedy of all time. Just accept it. Number 8, Shazam 2. Shazam! Nope, still nothing. Shazam! Fury of the Gods is the first sequel in what I'm sure is going to be a 7-movie franchise, as DC loves to just squeeze their properties for everything they've got. The film followed Billy Batson and his family as they attempt to save the world from the gods Calypso and Hespera. Shazam is portrayed by Zach Levi, and since the first movie premiered in 2019, fans have agreed that he is perfect for the role. The kid who plays teenage Billy, not so much. The sequel was plagued with issues from the get-go. As I said, the guy playing young Billy was hated by fans, so the director made the decision to cut out the majority of his scenes. This is why Billy spends about 90% of the sequel in his adult form. It also seems to be suffering from the same CGI problems as the first movie. While most DC properties are actually pretty polished, whenever Shazam is flying past buildings, his head is so clearly being pasted onto like an animated body or something. It's beyond distracting. While the film had a few moments of fun, it was only the sprinkles on top of the poo-poo sundae. The script is basically just, this is what happens, this is where we are now, these are the bad guys, the end. This is not only a highly skippable movie, but was a massive flop at the box office. Unfortunately, it's looking like Shazam 3 might get left on the back burner until the world forgets about this one. Number 7, The Little Mermaid. Okay, all you Disney fans, I am not putting the Little Mermaid remake on this list because of anything that the internet is mad about. Those people suck. It's on this list because guess what? It's a bad movie. This live-action remake based on the classic Disney cartoon is just the latest in a long line of rehashed childhood classics that either hit hard or miss by a mile. This time around, Disney didn't just remake the movie, they remade some of the music as well. Now, changing the lyrics to the song Kiss the Girl to remind Eric that he needs consent before kissing Ariel is a nice update and was not at all distracting. Casting Awkwafina as a seagull and letting her rap, that doesn't work very well, guys. While the cast for this movie was definitely on point, Melissa McCarthy will always be my Ursula from now on, they unfortunately suffered from the wrath of Disney writers. There's a pattern in all of these live-action remakes that they just tend to do shot-for-shot remakes with a little bit of spice added to make us think that it's new. Like when they made the genie the narrator in Aladdin, or nope, that's it. Most of these are just shot-for-shot remakes. The inclusion of new songs is not enough to keep us from noticing that this is just another live-action remake of something that was already perfect. Just go watch the old Little Mermaid if you're actually really feeling it, and then you won't have to get the song Scuttlebutt stuck in your head for a month like I did. Number 6, No No Snow Bear. Okay, obviously the movie is not actually called No No Snow Bear, but I'm not allowed to say what the real stuff is, so just use your imagination. The movie is about exactly what it sounds like it's about, a bear under the influence. Yet it's also somehow about Ray Liotta being in a mob or something, I don't know. There was surprisingly a lot going on in this movie's plot. It featured a pretty solid cast, but its director was the main draw of the movie. Banks is best known for her roles in films like Power Rangers or Brightburn, but she should be known as an awesome director. Elizabeth directed all 3 of the installments in the Pitch Perfect franchise, and I am ashamed to say that I still know the first riff off by heart. She made a name for herself as a queen of comedy, so when she announced that her most recent project, No No Snow Bear, was coming out, fans were stoked to see what kind of comedy take that Liz was going to bring to this rather dark, true story. And yeah, that's right, this actually happened, only with one very different result. In the movie, the bear goes on a rampage, tearing down everyone in her path. In real life, the bear's heart exploded because it ingested several hundred pounds of no-no snow. But rather than a comedy-filled good time flick, this turned out to be one of the most graphic movies to come out this year. It's filled with more gore and shock value than anything else, and there are moments that are clearly meant to be funny little jokes, but they just don't fit in with all the face ripping and headshots. Seriously, unless they like this stuff, don't watch this one with your parents. I learned that one the hard way. Sorry, Mom. Number 5, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Ants. Ants. Ant-Man. That was an old ad from 2015. Just wanted to share that with you guys. Ant-Man, aka Paul Rudd, was first introduced into the MCU's Phase 2, premiering in summer of 2015. The first movie received massive success as Ant-Man was the first new solo superhero to be introduced outside of the main Avengers cast, apart from the Guardians of the Galaxy. Paul's casting as Scott Lang was perfect. He was charming and charismatic, while also delivering some awesome action-packed sequences, whether it be CGI or real life. Mostly CGI, because Paul Rudd can't shrink himself down. That would be cool though. Since signing a multi-film contract means you belong to Marvel, Paul has appeared as Ant-Man more than 5 times since 2015, with his most recent threequel, Quantumania, being the weakest film for not only Ant-Man, but for the current phase of the MCU as a whole. Now, let's just get this out of the way. Marvel has been getting worse and worse since Endgame in 2019. Nothing has been able to compare or even come close to a similar level of entertainment as that. Quantumania was supposed to be the official launch of Jonathan Majors as the newest big bad of the MCU, Kang the Conqueror, who literally has the power to disintegrate people with his hands, but he doesn't do that once when he fights Ant-Man, or when he's being swarmed by ants, or literally any other time than the 5 minutes of chaos that we get towards the end of this movie. Not only was this movie slow and boring, it also decided to focus on a side plot that adds like nothing to the overall experience of the movie, other than giving Bill Murray one of the worst cameos in Marvel history. Number 4. Renfield. Have you ever asked yourself, what would it look like if Nicolas Cage played the original vampire on screen? Well, unfortunately, that question is answered in this movie. This comedy action flick stars Nicholas Hoult as the titular Renfield, alongside Cage as Dracula and Awkwafina as a cop for some reason. Now, the first random, weird, dumb thing is that Renfield eats bugs to gain some of Dracula's powers, speed, strength, agility, but it's never actually explained like why or how that it's bugs. They also decided to leave Dracula out of most of the movie, only really being on screen for like 25 minutes of the entire thing. Now, that might have something to do with Nick's unhinged performance. Someone finally told him that he could play a vampire and he was just like, oh yeah! Honestly, there's one particular scene in the movie in Renfield's kitchen that shows how good Nick could have been if they gave his character more breathing room. But instead, he gets like 2 good scenes, some cutaway jokes, and finally a big action sequence at the end. While the movie may have been fun to some fans, most people who saw this one just wish they could watch more Nick Cage. Number 3. Magic Mike 3. Alright everybody, let's get it. Channing Tatum may have been sticking to comedy or action movies in the past few years, but did you know that there are now 3 movies about him being a dancer? This time it's in London. The third film follows Mike after a long hiatus away from the stage, being lured back by Salma Hayek, who makes him an offer that he can't refuse, and hilarity ensues. Now, from what I understand, it's just a really boring movie with some cool dance sequences in between. The reviews for Magic Mike 3 are unanimous. If you just want to watch Channing Tatum dance shirtless for an hour and a half, great, this is a great movie for you. If you want to watch a movie starring Channing Tatum, go grab 21 Jump Street. Magic Mike lost his magic, and the movie was a flop. Luckily for Channing, he makes a cameo in like everything now, so keep an eye out during the new Barbie movie, I guess, you never know. Number 2. The Pope's Exorcist. When Russell Crowe gets casted in a movie, we're usually pretty excited. The man behind the iconic character Maximus from the Gladiator movie is normally a pretty solid performer. Over the past few years, he's starred in every genre in existence. Overall, it's been pretty solid, but it wasn't until Thor: Love and Thunder that the world began to question the skills that Russell still had. His first solo project following his role as Zeus was that of the real-life priest Padre Gabriel Amorth, who was about to be let go as the Vatican's main exorcist, but is suddenly tasked with carrying out the exorcism of a young man possessed by a demon, but uncovers the truth of the Vatican. Now, I'm about to spoil every single thing in this movie so that you don't have to see it if you don't want to. It turns out that the Vatican knew there was a demon in the world, and it was possessing members of the Vatican, slowly making its way to the Pope. The plot is actually kinda neat, so it was a massive disappointment for fans when it turned out that this was nothing but a PG-13 horror action movie trying to set up some kind of like a weird Pope's Exorcist trilogy or something. The last 20 minutes of this movie is just Russell running around and bumping into things, trying to expel the demon, but he looks like he's had just too much no-no juice and he can't figure out his. Then he just grunts and shakes in a chair. Not only was the movie bad because of the overall, well, movie, but it's the realization that the real Father Gabriel was totally lying about that entire thing, right? Yeah, oh, young guy gets possessed at the exact same time you're about to be fired. Yeah, that's not suspicious at all. And at number 1, Winnie the Pooh, Life Juice and Honey. Now, of course, the real title of this one is not Life Juice and Honey, but I'm not allowed to say the actual word on the internet. Life juice is the stuff that comes out of us when we are sliced open, yet I'm allowed to say that. This movie is exactly what it sounds like. a horror movie centered around one of the most loved cartoons of all time. The plot follows Chris as an adult. He's moved on from his time with his friends Winnie and Piglet and left them alone in the forest. But because of that, they grow feral and gain a taste for life juice. As you can imagine, nobody wanted this movie. Anyone who actually grew up with Winnie were more likely scarred by that creepy humanoid bear on the poster. Like, oh my, look at that thing, it's just so hard to look at. This was a straight to Pirate Bay movie. If you actually paid to see this, you need a refund. The movie was made on a shoestring budget, and it was very obviously made by a first-time filmmaker or something like that. Like, this literally looks like it was made by a student or something. The movie currently sits at an impressive 3% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not 30, not 13, 3. It's like they set out to make the worst movie imaginable and somehow did worse.